Hello and welcome to Read Brave, a comic book podcast from the Graphomania Podcast Network. I'm your host, Vinton Bain, and today we are once again trying out this shorter format of kind of what I've been calling This Week in Comics with Vinton. It's what I tried out last week, and I got some positive feedback on it, so I'm going to try it out again, and we'll see what we do from here on out. This doesn't mean that we won't be doing interviews or we won't be having guest hosts or segments anymore. This just means that this is an easy way for me to keep the show going weekly without exhausting myself and trying to find all those different resources to put that big of a show together, and hopefully still give you the comic book news and information that you want, as well as some of my opinions on what I'm reading. So let's get started. This week, I was introduced to a new television show, a cartoon show for the Justice League Action. A friend of mine and friend of the show, Joshua Unruh, introduced me to this, and it is really a fantastic animated show. Most of the Justice League animation, DC's animation in general, has been really, really good, has a really good track record. This cartoon just blows everything else out of the water in a lot of ways, though, of course, still not beating Batman the Animated Series because I don't think anything ever could. But let me just give a few facts for the things that have happened in the 6 episodes I have seen so far. Episode 1 has Batman teaming up with the ancient wizard Shazam and the young Billy Batson to fight Black Adam. We may see Black Adam be portrayed by The Rock, as a side note, in a DCU film upcoming. That's been rumored, and I think he actually is attached, but I don't know if they've actually announced anything that they're actually doing with the film, so who knows, but that would be kind of cool. Anyways, side note, back on track. Episode 4 finds Swamp Thing and John Constantine helping out the Justice League, and also finds Plastic Man wearing Wonder Woman's costume, which has some funny lines when they all need to switch costumes at one point, or they decide to switch costumes at some point as a part of a plan to fight the enemies that they're fighting. And at the end, they've switched back, but Plastic Man is still wearing Wonder Woman's outfit and says, "These boots are just so comfy." And I laughed a lot. Episode 5 features Space Cabbie, which was not a comic character that I was familiar with, but this is something that Unruh specifically pointed out to me, so I was excited to find out more about, and I've done some reading on, and I'm really interested in Space Cabbie now. This is an outer space cabbie, a man who drives around a cab in space for superheroes, I guess. In this episode, I don't know if that's the typical thing that he does, but I am really stoked to find out more about Space Cabbie. In episode 6, we're introduced to a a villain team called the Nuclear Family. This is a really interesting team that's from the comics as well, from the Outsiders comics from DC, and I'm also really interested to find out more about them. If you didn't recognize a lot of those names I said, that is because that's what I love about this show. It's pulling things that aren't actually in the forefront of DC Comics. It's not focusing and relying heavily on the main characters and the main villains over and over again, which we see so often when a comic book TV show is put out, that they just rely super heavily on just what's popular, and they don't dig into the rich, deep history of all the characters that these comic book companies have. And this show is doing exactly the opposite, of course, throwing Batman and Superman in there as their leads, but bringing in all these side characters that I was even familiar with. Of course, I'm not a DC fan that much. I'm mostly a Marvel guy, so that's to be expected. But I think even some people that are into DC Comics still might not know some of these characters, like the Nuclear Family and Space Cabbie. And what kids cartoon is going to have Swamp Thing and John Constantine helping out the Justice League? This one. And that's why I'm in love with it. They just released a Volume 1 DVD pack with a few episodes called Superpowers Unite. Aside from that, I think the only way that you can see it is by having Cartoon Network, some kind of cable satellite subscription, being able to stream that online through the Cartoon Network app or whatever. Of course, Cartoon Network has a couple of free episodes that you can watch on their app, and there may be other ways, but those are the only ones that I know of because I watch it through a Cartoon Network subscription. Speaking of DC animated shows, I actually was revisiting Batman the Animated Series this week for a guest spot on a currently classified project, and it reminded me just how much I love those title cards. Why doesn't everything have title cards? For those looking for a place to watch Batman the Animated Series, it's currently streaming on Amazon Prime, that is, for those who do have Amazon Prime. And if you don't, that's kind of weird. I feel like everyone has Amazon Prime these days. It's so convenient. And the DVDs are readily available everywhere. But I was very excited to find out that this news was just dropped this week that they are actually going to be releasing a Blu-ray remaster of the series in 2018. It hasn't announced the details of that and what format, what special features we can expect, and what ways they'll be remastering it, but it's really, really exciting. Batman the Animated Series holds up to this day as one of the best comic book related cartoons ever created. Speaking of Batman the Long Halloween, it was something that we focused on our last episode of Excelsior over on that podcast. And when I was taking my notes for it, I discovered a Batman the Long Halloween audio drama and a motion comic that was made for it as well on YouTube. This was created by Carl Dutton, and I'll put links into the show notes about this. But he did a audio drama for podcasting, I guess. I'm not sure if that's where it originally was, but it's on podcast apps. You can look it up there. And then there's a motion comic that was created for it on YouTube. It's really fascinating and a really cool way to experience that story. And I haven't explored other things that he's done, but I assume he has done other ones because I did see that there's also some X-Men audio dramas I think were done by the same people that did Batman the Long Halloween, but I haven't confirmed that. I should have confirmed that before I got on. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. Next week on Excelsior, we are going to be doing the 1989 Batman movie, so don't miss that if you want to get nuts. I hope you get that reference, otherwise I sound real goofy. I want to talk about something that happened at New York Comic Con just recently. I don't want to get too much into this, but I guess during the convention, there were some rough comments made by comic shop owners toward Marvel. I didn't seek out what exactly happened, and I won't because I don't have the time for that negativity in my life. I have more positive things I want to seek out and learn about. But from what I heard, basically, they said people don't want women and people of color in these classic comic roles. You know, Thor, Captain America, Spider-Man, etc. They supposedly said that when fans of MCU films come into their shops and find out that Cap is black and Thor is a woman, they turn around and leave. Which I just don't get. This has never been my experience. I worked at the bookstore for quite a while and volunteer at my local comic book shop every free comic book day, and every time I suggest comics with legacy characters like these to MCU fans, they're interested and excited. They typically seem to understand and appreciate that the comics have a rich history, much deeper than the films, and they're eager to know all about it, so I don't see this actually happening. This seemed to me to come off more as shop owners who already hate these things and steer customers away from them, or shame them for seeking them out, which is something that's actually happened to me. I've been to a few shops where owners have been very opinionated and shame me for what I'm looking for, with the heroes that I like, the stories that I like, and that's no way to run a shop. I participated in a conversation on Twitter about this with friends of mine and read other heartbreaking stories of comic book shops being run in volatile ways just like that. And it's really, really sad. It makes me really thankful for the comic book shop that I do have. There were some good points brought up about how there are so many ways to get comics these days that comic shops need to refocus to keep customers. My local comic book shop does free superhero schools where they dress up and perform comic history lessons for kids. The owner is constantly making costumes and has 2 big tables set up where people can just come in, sit, and talk. It's like a family there, really. If you happen to be in the Oklahoma area, go by New World Comics on 63rd Meridian and listen to episode 6 of this podcast for an interview with Buck, the owner. They will make you feel all the feels and tell you why some comic shops are doing it right and deserve all your support. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Something else I discovered this week, thanks to Task on Twitter, one of my Twitter friends, was that Raising Dion is this comic that just got a Netflix deal. This is a comic written by Dennis Lau. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I apologize for that. Illustrated by Jason Piperberg. It's about a single African-American mother trying to protect and raise her superpowered son. Netflix ordered a 10-episode series of this, and there's actually a YouTube live-action trailer that was made to promote the comic. I actually thought this was a trailer for the Netflix series when I first saw it. Got really excited because it's a really well-done trailer just to promote a comic. Like, this guy who made it knew what he was doing. It's fantastic. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes as well. You can download the first issue of the comic for free online. That'll be the same place I put that link to the creator's website. He has the video and the link to download the first issue of the comic. I haven't yet checked out the comic, but I'm very excited about it. It looks really fascinating. On other news, I know this isn't really comic book related, but there's a crossover in interest, and I wanted to mention, I've been playing the Stranger Things mobile game, available for free on iOS and Android. It plays like an old RPG, and it's absolutely delightful, and it's everything I need to hold off my excitement for the show and keep me satiated for the next 2 weeks or so until that show comes out. All right, before we go any further, I have just some quick news I want to run through, well, quickly. The first 20 minutes of the new season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was shown at New York Comic Con, and it sounds really exciting. I loved this last season. I think it was the best that the show has done thus far, and it looks like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be in space. And I heard rumors of a Star-Lord cameo. I'm excited if that's true, but I feel like that's probably not true. We'll see, and I'm stoked. The first episode of Runaways was also shown at New York Comic Con, and it looks like we'll be getting Old Lace. That's the dinosaur for those who don't know. And if you don't know, you should go back and read The Old Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan. It's amazing. I haven't heard much about what this actually entailed and how it was received, but the things I have heard have been very positive, and I'm excited about them. It should also be noted that Hulu, in celebration of its partnership with Marvel for its fall season, has dropped its monthly price from $7.99 to $5.99. That is supposed to run through January 9th, 2018, and is available to both new and lapsed Hulu subscribers. So that's exciting news. If you don't have Hulu, now's the time to get it. I don't know if this is true or not. I heard it on a video I watched, but I haven't actually found news for it by the time that I sat down to record this, but I heard that Ta-Nehisi Coates will be starting a new Black Panther title, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. But what I'm most excited about from Ta-Nehisi Coates is that he's teased possibly working on a new Storm series, and Storm is an X-Men who definitely deserves her own series. She's had a couple in the past, but they just haven't lasted, and I really think that this character could hold her own series really well under the right writer, so I'm excited for this, even though it's just a rumor. Don't get your hopes up too high. You know how rumors are. Marvel is returning to the world of Old Man Logan for a prequel about Old Man Hawkeye, which sounds unnecessary. But I'll check it out. I did like Old Man Hawkeye quite a bit in the original story. Punisher got understandably pushed from New York Comic Con because of the tragedy in Las Vegas. But I'm hoping for some news on that soon because they still haven't even given us a release date. And it's supposed to come out sometime this fall from what I'd heard for a long time. And, you know, fall's only so long, guys. You might want to announce that date. Get us excited. Thor Ragnarok reviews are pouring in, and they look very, very positive. The most uses of the word fun that I've ever seen in reviews, actually. So it's going to be fun, probably. I imagine. Lots of fun. That's what I would say from all the reviews. Fun. Fun, fun, fun. Also, Elijah Wood has expressed interest in playing Yorick, the main character in FX's adaptation of Y the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan, which he expressed interest. This isn't saying that he is going to or that FX is even considering it, but I think that could be cool. I could see him doing that. Sure, I'm mostly just excited this is finally getting adapted because I think it deserves to be adapted. That's it for quick news. Now let's move on to the standout comics that came out this past week for me. Avengers is back to legacy numbering and kicking off a Champions crossover in Avengers number 672. Written by Mark Waid with art by Jesus Saiz, the Champions must once again work with the iconic team that they left, and it goes about as smoothly as you would expect. The relationships are very interesting, especially between Vision and his daughter Viv, and the struggle for leadership between Sam Wilson and Kamala Khan is also really, really well done. I really enjoyed this issue and am very excited for this crossover storyline overall. Hopefully Champions starts to pick up my interest again because I was losing a little bit of interest there toward the last few issues, and that should be a series that's made particularly to delight me. I should also mention Iceman number 6, which had a wonderful legacy issue looking back on the Champions and mourning the loss of Secret Empire death spoiler here. Please skip ahead if you don't want a Secret Empire death spoiler. Mourning the loss of Black Widow. Spoiler over. So that was really interesting. I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all of Iceman so far, but that was unexpected. I didn't expect them to be talking about the Champions, so that was pretty cool. Batman number 32 ended the war of jokes and riddles. Written by Tom King and art by Mikel Janin. Again, pronunciation, man. I'm just reading these things on my comics, so I don't know. I hope that's right. It's probably not. I'm so sorry. This concludes that story arc, and we finally get an answer to the question popped way back in Batman number 24. We finally see what Batman has been so ashamed of and why he has been recounting this whole story. This was a really great ending to the story arc. I have a lot of thoughts on the events of this issue, but I'm mostly interested in the aftermath, what comes next. And I'm super interested to talk to others that have read it, so hit me up. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I don't want to spoil what happened here because it was kind of a big deal and pretty cool. So you should probably read it yourself. I usually don't care about spoilers myself, but you might. If you want to know what happened, just hit me up on Twitter. Moving on to comics that I'm excited about coming out this week. There's quite a lot of them, actually. The Super Sons Volume 1 trade comes out this week, collecting the first 5 issues of this delightful comic that if you are a regular listener, you know I absolutely loved. Mr. Miracle number 3 comes out, written by Tom King, who writes specifically for me these days, it seems, and Mitch Gerads is killing the art here. I'm very excited for as much Jack Kirby love as I can get in comics these days, and more new God's goodness, always, please. All New Wolverine number 25 starts a new storyline called Orphans of X, where Laura has to track down Dakin and returns to the facility. This has been one of the most consistently good books put out by Marvel since it started. Tom Taylor has done a fantastic job bringing this character into her own and making her Wolverine. Amazing Spider-Man returns to legacy numbering with number 789, and I'm pretty interested to see how Dan Slott continues his Spider-Man epic after so much change during Secret Empire and the things that happened just before it, in this appropriately named new story arc, The Fall of Parker. I like Down on His Luck Peter Parker, so it should be good for me. And I can't go without mentioning those beautiful Alex Ross covers. Marvel must be paying a pretty penny for all of those, because that's some really high-class art. Defenders also starts a new story arc in issue number 6, and why it isn't legacy numbered, I'll never know. Bendis and Marquez have blown me away with how good this series has been, and I expect that to continue. This issue does carry the legacy banner, so I expect them to give some kind of nod towards Defender's history, but I would not have expected a Deadpool guest appearance, which is apparently also what we're getting. Falcon number 1 is launching as Sam Wilson returns to his original super identity, and I think I will at least check out issue 1. I wasn't a big Falcon fan and didn't know a ton about the character until he became Captain America. I knew he existed, obviously, and I'd read stuff with him, but I never really knew that much about his backstory. Then I fell in love with him as Captain America. He was amazing. I should also mention the Captain America Generations issue with both him and Steve, of course, is absolutely beautiful and sure to deal out all the feels to anyone who reads it. Rainbow Rowell's run on the relaunch of Runaways continues in issue number 2, and I'm very eager for everything this series will bring. I love the original run, which I read as it was coming out. The trailer for the show next month looks amazing, and all of this has really made me want to reread all of that old stuff because it's been so long, and I remember it being so good. So again, second time during this episode, you should read Runaways, both the old one and the new one. So far, it's really good anyways. I can't really speak for how it's going to continue, but Rainbow Rowell, I trust her. Rainbow Rowell, can we trust her? Yeah, I think so. X-Men Blue number 13 continues the crossover with X-Men Gold, the Mojo Worldwide Part 2. The Blue team was my favorite team when they were under the all-new X-Men title, but I haven't quite enjoyed it as much here in Blue. I really wish Bunn would ditch the alt Wolverine Jimmy, but other than that, I remain positive and hopeful for what this series is going to bring. These are characters I really love, and I think Bunn can do a good job with them. Just so far, he hasn't done things that I'm super interested in. So we'll see how that goes. And that's where I'm going to end this episode. So if you'd like to get into contact with us, hit us up on Twitter at read_brave, on Instagram at readbravecomics, email us at contact@graphocast.com, or personally, I'd love to talk comics with you on Twitter at FleshEater. If you'd like to support the Graphomania Podcast Network in this episode specifically, check out patreon.com/graphocast and get some extra goodies for your support. Please remember to leave a rating and review on iTunes, and I will see all of you next time, true believers. Goodbye! This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, graphocast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.